Okay, I am live for what might be the shortest live stream I have done, and I might possibly just take it off if not much really happens. It depends on how things are going with everybody else. Like I mentioned yesterday, I decided to try this live stream on a whim, because I saw the option of going from video to live stream, so I wanted to try it out and see how it goes. Should I watch the first? You mean the... Oop. Aha, people want to discuss. Okay, good. Well, I thought your point was quite interesting, but it somehow felt incomplete. You are absolutely correct. So if you don't continue, let's go. Okay. Autumn Goblin, yes, finish the video first, then come back. Otherwise, you might be a little bit lost. Mr. Axel, you were completely correct. It was highly incomplete. If I was to do a completed version, it would take days, if not weeks, of constant video streaming to get the whole point across. Because it is a massive, massive subject that no one can get the whole thing down in one single watch. But I want this video to serve almost as an anchor to future videos I do. What I say before you watch this one, watch You Are the Story, so you know where I am coming from. Because I noticed just how many scripts. So at this point, I've had more scripts that I've thrown in the graveyard than I've actually turned into videos. And I've got, what, 50-some non-live stream videos up or something? So that's a lot of scripts. Also, as usual, let me know if the audio is fine, if music is too soft or too loud, etc. It seems like the Yeti mic is actually the one that's picking up the sound this time, so I'm not gonna have a screech fest like before. So yeah, Mr. Axel, if you have any specific questions, feel free to ask them, and I can use that as a jumping off point to decide which way this conversation is going to flow. Or anybody else. We got 7 people watching at the moment, 1 is me, so 6 other people. Throw in any questions, comments, or anything, and I can springboard off of that. As I become sad that I made some tea, but I made it poorly. I made tea that'll pierce the heavens, jasmine silver needle, and I have a specific Yijing pot that I use only for that tea. But I'm not sure what went wrong, because it's got very little taste, but it still has bitterness to it. So how did I end up getting the bitterness out of the tea, but not the taste? It's making me a little bit batty, but it is what it is. I might make that a... In fact, I'm probably going to do that right now. I'm going to make a comment, I'm going to pin it to the top of that video saying, if this video feels incomplete, because it is, it'll serve as a springboard for all the other content I want to do in the future. Okay, come on, go faster. Well, do you think that it's like a global, I can say, conspiracy, where people are pushing us towards some ideas with their stories? I'm gonna say unequivocally yes. This channel, well, I can't say it's not part of this channel. It is part of this channel. But it's done in a bit of a different way, I guess you can say. And my job is not to outright come and say it. All I really want to do is I want to point some things out and then let other people kind of see it for themselves. Right, excuse me, I'm just going to type up this comment real quick and then I'll get back to the chat here, that's important. Okay. So, yes, and there's many different layers to the guiding the moral cohesion of a society that these companies do. Nowadays, they're a lot more blatant and upfront about it because they just stopped caring and people stopped pretending otherwise. You can see it a lot with all the various social justice things where everything has to be a case of the white man evil or all men are terrible and all the other nonsense to go along with that. That's the most obvious stuff. Then there's other things that are a little bit less obvious, and I try to touch upon the two the two main ones that I see most vividly and drive me the most insane. The angels and demons part, don't take it too literal and in a form of some kind of a Christian centric thing. I just mean the very concepts of good and evil, right and wrong, and things along those lines. It seems like every single story tries to break things down and get all meta with it. Oh, everything is ambiguous. Nothing seems to make sense. The good guys are actually bad, the bad guys are actually good. What? Every goddamn time. And at this point, it's a little bit tiresome to constantly see it. When it comes to strife for a character and things he has to go through, you don't need to. How can I properly put this? There's many different types of struggle and suffering. And you don't need to have his struggle and suffering being, oh hey, I do horrible, evil, unspeakable things as well. Trying to just come up with some kind of a story. Wait, what? 1 second. Okay, this is a little bit weird. For everybody else, am I still live? Because this is being a little bit funny. I'm gonna assume I am live, and hopefully someone will tell me in the comments. If not, I will figure out how I'm gonna deal with this. It should be live. It's saying I'm live, but at the same time it's saying I'm not. Alright. So trying to come up with some example of characters having to go through some kind of struggle and suffering and growth from a story that's not about them being evil. There's always the problem of characters wondering if they are doing enough, if they are good enough. My Hero Academia right now in the manga is doing a fantastic job of showing a character suffering and doing wrong things and mistakes, but he's not actually being evil. He's not going around, ruining good people's lives for some higher ideal or something of that nature. His problem is more internalized. So it could be cases where you don't think you're doing enough. Could be cases where you mess up and you wonder if you should really be the one who is taking care of all this stuff. I mean, Spider-Man 2 did a pretty good job with that. I think it's not necessarily a problem, right? I think characters are way more complex than we used to think. There isn't just the good guy and the bad guy, so maybe this is their whole point. It's true, it's never that simple, but it's a matter of looking at the grand picture of things and seeing the patterns that keep coming up over and over and over again with these stories and the characters that come out, where they seem to be almost consistently going down these dark paths, and they have to always seem to need to do these evil, unspeakable things to really get anything done. And that's the problem with talking about this. Because it's such a grand picture thing, using just one example isn't really going to do it justice because, like I said in the video, people are going to keep using the words just or simply or only. So if I make one example, oh, that's just one example. Another example, oh, that's simply because it's within the story. A third example, oh, it's only because that's just how that world is. Things of that nature. Yeah. And so, but again, like I said, it doesn't necessarily mean that the show itself is bad, or the people who wrote the script have a specific agenda, but you don't necessarily need for people to have a specific agenda for them to accidentally push one. If I was to use the example with my child and the hot stove and the bonfire and whatnot, in that experience, never once did I make any mention of, oh, by the way, fire bad, don't touch the stove, etc. And my child is gonna think that, hey, he figured it out all on his own that fire bad, and not fire bad, but too close to the fire is bad, and I shouldn't touch the stove because it's hot, like that bonfire that kind of hurt me when I was making the s'mores. And so he may tell his friends the same thing. This is an example of a good agenda where, even though there was manipulation, it was benevolent manipulation. I don't think anybody's going to be against teaching a child not to touch the stove. The problem is, what if it was more malevolent? That's when things get a little bit more complex. And then there's the other aspect of the main characters and their friends always seem to be some form of loser. Just some pathetic little troglodyte who, I don't even know, the stories are not even all that good anymore, so I can't think of an example where they pull a cliche trope like, oh, well, I had the power within me all along, or anything of the sort. It's never I had the power within me all along. It's, I just had to do it, and, I so happened to get it done. I've already forgotten what example I chose in the video. Oh, Shaun of the Dead. I didn't like that movie at all. Because none of the characters really felt likable. It was just watching a bunch of losers who, because the plot, were surviving this zombie apocalypse thing. No one has to make any tough decisions. No one has to, well, no, they have to rise above, but they don't really. Because the plot doesn't let them rise above. A problem with a lot of storytelling is that too many writers know where they want to be, but they don't know how to properly get to that space. And it's frustrating to watch nowadays. There's just way too many ass pulls and way too many why did the character do that and various things of that nature. Alright, so Mr. Axel has had a couple nice little comments. He can always add a little bit more. Goblin is finishing up the video. Is there anybody else in the chat who's got anything? Oh, there he is, Mr. Goblin. If you or anybody else has any other type of questions or comments that I can springboard off of, I would love to. So feel free to say something in the comments, and yeah, let's see what else we can dig up from this. I don't hate, no. Opposite direction. I love Konosuba. Konosuba is fantastic. That's why I'm so excited about Season 3. And it's finally coming out. But it's not an in-depth show that's going to change my life and make me see new perspectives. It's a train wreck, but it's a fantastic train wreck that I would not give up for anything. So it's a matter of. Alright, I can use this as a springboard. I'm just trying to think of how to properly manipulate this so people can understand properly. Because there's literally a million ways I can describe why that previous sentence I just said makes no sense, and a part of you should feel like I am an idiot for saying there's literally a million reasons. Because I don't know if there's literally exactly 1 million reasons. The word literal is supposed to have a specific definition. And one of the things people do nowadays is they literally use the word literally as figuratively. I'm literally gonna die if I don't get enough people giving me super chat, so feel free to donate $5. To hell with it. And everyone thinks that's okay, but nobody wants to realize that, hey, in some way, shape, or form, you were manipulated into using the word literally to not mean what it's supposed to mean. And that is not benevolent. That is not an accident. That's one of the things which I was alluding to before, where people get manipulated in ways that they don't even realize. It adds to the constant problem of language manipulation and the breakdown of what words are supposed to mean. If you were trying to follow a compass, you want to know which way north, south, east, and west are. You can't have south be down there or maybe in the opposite direction. Who cares? South is what you make it. You have to decide which way south is. And after you decide that, it'll decide which way north is. That'll decide which way east and west are. But after you decide, you can't change your mind halfway through the journey. And so a word like literally being manipulated to mean not literally, it adds to the problem of not having definitive definitions where things mean what they're supposed to mean. And this is really important with telling stories. South is subjective. Here is the problem with that type of thinking. People need to come together to decide which way south is. And after they decide, it needs to stay that way. Because you cannot have one group deciding that red light means stop at a traffic sign, but green light means stop, and red light means go. You can't have people deciding which color means what. You have to decide. Okay. Alright, I was trying not to be mean, but it's like, damn it, Autumn Goblin. But, yeah, I'm trying to think of some more specific examples. This is, by the way, this is not the makeup stream that I was talking about last time. It's not going too bad, but I didn't plan ahead like I wanted to. So when I make the makeup stream for the previous stream that was awful, there's going to be a lot more planning, there'll be a lot more visual oohs and ahs, and yeah. So yeah, actually, you know what? I like the traffic light example I used. You can't have people, like one group saying red means stop, green means go, another group saying red means go, green means stop. Because that's not going to cause anything good to happen. And when it comes to, it's, oh god, I'm going to have to be a little bit mean. I apologize to some people who might get offended at this, but at the same time, you probably should hear this and you probably should be offended and take a second look at your life. If you are offended. Nowadays, especially, no one has the concept of subtlety and nuance. Everything has to be explained right at face value. Otherwise, they're just not gonna get it. An example I can think of off the top of my head is Rick and Morty. If you look at the way Rick and Morty does comedy, their entire shtick for everything is, hey, this is the joke. Follow the joke along because I'm just telling you exactly what it is. Every freaking time. They're always breaking the fourth wall and getting meta about things, telling you exactly what you're supposed to be laughing at and exactly what joke they're trying to convey. It's kind of annoying to me. I don't know about everybody else, but yes, you're self-aware. We get it. It's been... what season is this? 4, 5? I don't know. I know there's going to be a... I'm not gonna say it yet. Something related to Rick and Morty in the business. But yeah. So that is... that, I guess. Anybody else have any more comments? 5 viewers at the moment. Something for me to jump off of, springboard. Maybe you want more clarification of something I already said. Just let me know. Right now this whole thing is working with all of you. The chat guides the conversation. And as always, there is a 15-second gap between what I say and what comes up on the screen. Ironic and self-aware humor usually is a crutch for jokes. Yes, it is. It's one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of it. On occasion, it is fine, but after a certain point, it just gets... it gets boring. I mentioned in a community post that a few days ago I saw the second Space Jam movie, and it was awful and riddled with this problem. One of the things I said was that every Looney Tunes character didn't feel like they were their character. They felt like they were a cheap imitation of the character. What really annoyed the crap out of me was Granny. About 90% of her jokes was, hey, despite me being old, I am not old because I know young things and do young stuff. Ha ha ha. Laugh at the funny granny who's not actually a granny. Hey, look, haters gonna hate, I know that line. Laugh at me. Oh, hey, look, I'm doing backflips off of my walker because that's not what old people do. Laugh at the joke. Tee hee hee. It's pretty annoying. The Sonic brand isn't really taken seriously anymore because of self-aware humor. Sonic is weird. You know, funny thing, I don't know when I'm gonna do this video, but I want to do a video titled something along the lines of Kill Your Nostalgia, because going back to the manipulation thing, there's a reason why you're being manipulated into thinking that your youth was so fantastic and wonderful. It's nowhere near as good as you remember it, it's just that you were a child, and as a child, things are a lot easier to seem fun. Sure, when I was 5 years old, the hungry caterpillar entertained me. It's not gonna entertain me now. But if I start talking to adults, oh man, do you remember the hungry caterpillar? Oh man, that bitch was hungry. It's gonna be weird. But people keep doing that with video games. I loved Sonic back when I was a kid. Sonic was my jam. But I think it'd be a little bit weird if I kept talking about Sonic. But people keep doing this. They keep wanting to bring back Mario and play the original Marios and all the other classic cliche people. Crash Bandicoots, what's the one that just came out? Ratchet and Clank. They just keep wanting these damn sequels and just rehashing the same old stuff, and it's really annoying. If you want a story and you just keep repeating the same stuff over and over again, guess what? You're gonna be stuck in some sort of loop. And then people complain about their life not having much meaning. Well, it's because you've been here already. You keep wanting to do the same stuff over and over again. Nobody wants to try anything new, unique, or original. On one hand, that's part of the, let me rephrase that. On one hand, all those big production conglomerates I mentioned, Universal, Disney, etc., they're part of the problem because they don't want to take any risks neither. They don't want to risk doing something brand new and it failing when people are just going to buy the same crap over and over again. On the other hand, fellow followers, oh, how am I going to keep people if I keep insulting them? You keep eating the same crap over and over again, and then wonder why everything sucks. This past decade, I guess close to, 7 years maybe, between half a decade and a full decade, has been a continuous slew of, oh man, all media and games are just fucking awful at this point. It's just the same old crap. Oh, look, another Mario game. I am excited. Woohoo. Oh, another Assassin's Creed. Yeah, I like that. I am excited. Why does this game suck so much and have so many bugs? Ubisoft, you're terrible. I hate this. Blah blah blah. It's annoying. I'm a teen and sometimes I feel nostalgic about things, but I kind of just get over it. You're a teenager of nowadays, so I can't relate in the same way. But my generation is obsessed with this nostalgia stuff. And you probably don't even know why. Not you specifically, but my generation. It's pretty annoying. You do. It's kind of ironic. Things have become so cliched that, in a way, going back to the basic of the basics ends up being new and original. I think that's one of the reasons why One Punch Man is just so unbelievably fantastic. Every manga chapter right now just has me at the edge of my seat. Even though on paper, it is as basic can get. But they're not doing the stupid cliche manipulation stuff. They're not trying to mess with your morals or anything of the sort. They're just trying to tell a good, entertaining story. Not every story needs to be life-changing and makes you need to rethink the world and how things go. It can be just as simple as just, dude punches another dude, I like that. Hell, even that works. Just seeing characters broken down but still fighting the good fight. You don't need to outright say, it's because of justice. You can just show it as it is and people will like it. I think the pandemic has worsened nostalgia obsession. I would say so, yes. It was bad before, but oh boy, the pandemic has made everything worse. No one wants to go out and try the new thing. They just want the same old rehash over and over again. Then you get things like Space Jam 2, which they decided to just cram every single IP they could think of into the movie, and it was not good. It was not entertaining. They didn't even care about the story, and that much was obvious. You don't even need like an in-depth plot, but they fail at even just having a simple basic plot. Too many plot holes that were just like even a 5-year-old can probably figure out. It was not entertaining. I was bored, really bored. And it's not because LeBron James isn't an actor, so he's got bad acting moments. So is Michael Jordan. Every now and then I have to go back and watch old videos or old movies to make sure that it still holds up, or if it's nostalgia based or whatever. Space Jam actually, in a lot of ways, still holds up in just being entertaining. The new one, not so much. Just not good stories. On that note of stories, with the video that previously played, got a bit more viewers now. Any more comments, questions, concerns, yelling at me for being a boomer, anything of the sort, feel free to lay it on me. Now I'll use that as a springboard for something to talk about. Also remembering that there's a 15-second delay because YouTube, despite YouTube being just the original mainstream video platform, they're still so far behind everybody else. Has there ever been a new 2D animated hand-drawn movie this year? That's a good question. I'm not sure. Animated 2D movie of the past year. Not counting Japan, but in America, I'm honestly not sure. Maybe? How do you think a writer should conceive a story without any stereotype? There are solid building blocks. That's a complicated question because when I say stories, there is an almost endless multitude of different stories and ways you can conceptualize the stories and perceive them and put them together. It depends on what the writer wants to do with the story. What is their goal? You need to have some sort of end game in mind, even if it's just a vague end game. And from there, let things kind of just grow and develop and decide from there. Actually, I suppose maybe that's not entirely true because with my let's create an anime about ninja thing that I'm hoping in a few months I can start doing it on the regular, depending on the support I get. I don't have a real... Actually, no, that's also a lie. I do have an end goal with that, but it's not a story end goal. It's a more abstract, conceptualized end goal. Making a good, entertaining story based somewhat in realism about ninja. Because that's, again, one of the things I mentioned before. Things have gotten so overly complex, people trying to tell these in-depth stories that actually just end up being shit, that sometimes you need a one-punch man, something that's just really simple to bring it back around and just have a good story. I'm not looking to add any type of morality to the ninja anime. I gotta give it a title already. We'll just call it Ninja for now. I'm not trying to pass any morality. I'm not trying to tell any type of specific tale. I just want people to be entertained and have that wonder of seeing ninjas do ninja things in a modern day setting, not in feudal Japan. How would they have evolved? How would they use the tools? Things of that nature. How would they use technology? Will they use technology? And then with the help of people, write out from there and show people the basic concepts of putting a story together. But without any stereotypes, I don't think that would really be possible. Because when you say stereotype, you probably have one thing in mind, but me, I'm thinking archetypes. And that's something that's kind of been lost, because people have gone past archetypes and now just focusing on stereotypes. And it is different. The fanfiction I want to write about the Hunter x Hunter character is probably just going to be a simple story of how bettering yourself, how should I go about? When you say the Hunter x Hunter character, do you mean the main character Gon? Or do you mean a different Hunter x Hunter character? Because depending on the character and his background and motivations and whatnot, bettering himself could mean one thing or could mean something else. I started getting some texts. No, you mean a different character. Like your own OC character in the Hunter x Hunter universe? But again, it all depends on the motivation of the character and why he wants to better himself and in what way. Is he a fighter who wants to become better at hand-to-hand combat? Or is he a fighter who, because of his obsession, is kind of destroying his life outside of combat and needs to better himself to be a better friend, father, whatever it might be? Does he need to become... It's going to be more of a comedy. He needs to become better at marketing himself because nobody wants to hire him for a fight. What type of betterment are we talking about? That's the fun thing with stories. There is a million different ways that things can go, depending on what you want to do. And stories can evolve in a lot of ways as well. There's a story I've mentioned before that I've been playing around for, 15 years now. Longer than 15 years. The name is Jingy, and it's a story about... Basic premise, after World War II and the whole nuclear stuff, bad things happened and the whole world came together and said, no more guns and weapons of that sort, so no more bombs, etc. So all that was left was martial arts. And it changed the way society developed, as now martial arts has become a big aspect in everybody's existence. It's like a martial arts universe, basically. But still based in modern-ish day. And so I have characters that live in that world, and how I develop them has been changing a lot. Their motivations have been changing, their reasons for fighting have been changing, and it's still changing now. Dragon's Treasure. What is the balance of story in terms of maintaining simplicity and complexities? For example, with Naruto, was there a possible balance of elemental and kaiju? Ooh, Naruto is... Actually, I have a perfect way of describing simplicity and complexity. Give me 1 second, I'll be right back. I'm gonna grab me something to drink so my throat is not so dry. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. So there is a game out there, an old Chinese game called Go, spelled G-O. It's got a few other names if you want to look it up. Baduk, B-A-D-U-K, Wei Qi or Wei Qi, W-E-I-Q-I. On the surface, it's as simple can get. You have a 19 by 19... 15-year-old story sounds like Into the Badlands. I saw a few episodes of that, and it's not. It's different. But that's something in which at some point I would love to go into more detail about, but not this stream. Alright, so the game of Go. At the surface, it is unbelievably simple. A 19 by 19 board. There's just one single piece for each person. Player 1 has the black one, player 2 has the white one. The board is empty, and you place these stones at the crosshairs of the 19 by 19 board. If one piece, or a multitude of pieces, is surrounded so that, every single escape they have is surrounded by the opposite piece, they are captured. But the goal of the game is not to capture the pieces, is to have as much space available within the board. It's a bit of a crappy example that I'm explaining right now, but all you need to know is that it's just one single piece. It doesn't do a multitude of things. You just place it down, and if the pieces are surrounded by the opposing pieces, they get captured. And you're supposed to make your own little space or territory. That's how simple it is, just by the description. But in terms of possibilities of moves, it is more complex than chess. I'm not saying that as an opinion, I'm saying that as absolute fact. In terms of the number of possible moves that could happen, it's a lot more advanced than chess. I've practiced playing both. Not very well, not very deep, because those are leisure activities and I don't have much leisure. So despite it being so simple, it's unbelievably complex. And there's just so much stuff to know. So many different ways things can go. It is crazy. Hello, Vertex Bite. Thank you for enjoying my vids. I work as hard as I can on the serious ones, and the ones that are not too serious, well, I have fun. Alexei, I like the idea. Been exploring a similar idea for Nirvana via C.S. Lewis. Autumn Goblin. Character's name is Sadoso. He blackmails one of Gon's friends and is threatened by Killua, so he leaves Battle Tower forever. That's the context, and also he is not an OC. Oh, it's been a while. I can't remember the Battle Towers saga. 1 second. Okay. Going back to, I'll get back to you in a second, Autumn Goblin, but of simplicity and complexity, you don't need things to be complex for them to become complex, if that makes sense. Things can also be complex and become very simple. Perfect example with this. This is a huge issue with a lot of MMO games, where you have some MMO game and you have like 60 different skills and abilities laid out in front of you. Down at the bottom of the screen, on the side of the screen, maybe some in the middle. Just a shit ton of abilities that you could do. You come across a situation. And this situation requires one ability to use. Because that's the best ability to use. Why would you use something else? Let's say there is a swarm of spiders. And the best way to deal with the spiders is the AoE spell. The game seems complex on the surface because you have like 60 different abilities. But when it comes down to it, there's really only one choice. And that makes it simple. Jumping from simplicity to simplicity does not make something complex. And a lot of MMO games have this problem. But then you look at something like Dark Souls, where on the surface, you dodge and you hit. That's the game in a nutshell. Dodge and hit, dodge and hit. But it's so complex in the way you could do things that makes it fun. In terms of Naruto, how could they do that? I suppose what they could have done is the kaiju be so strong that no one single ninja can deal with it on their own. But you had a couple of ninjas together, they can trick it into having an opening where it can get hit by Rasengan version 788. I don't know how many different Rasengans there are nowadays, but something along those lines. And don't do something like Madara, I don't like this accent, fighting off the entire ninja army all by himself. That's too much of a power creep that happens all at once. I'm gonna turn the background music up a little bit. So let me know if it gets too loud. Something a bit more chill. So I suppose that's one way of looking at simplicity and complexity. If you have a million things you can do, but there's only one actual solution, then you don't have a million things you can do. You have one thing you can do. And it doesn't really explain what's going to happen. Because everybody knows what's going to happen to one thing. Alright, from this odd goblin, the character. So he blackmailed somebody. Alright, there's two main paths in my head right now. There might be more, but just in my head at the spur of the moment that character can go. Number one, he sees his blackmailing life and decides, hey, this isn't working out, this is making me too much of a dick, but at this point I am just so balls deep in this underworld stuff that I don't know how I can get out, especially with so many people wanting to use me for nefarious ends. And so he can be trying to better himself by getting out of that life, while at the same time not knowing how to live outside that life. And so he can make mistakes, he can relapse. See, this is actually a perfect example of what I was saying earlier in the stream, where you don't, even if a character does bad things, it doesn't mean that he is gonna be a bad guy. You're not forcing the idea of, oh, everybody's got two sides, they got two wolves fighting inside them, one is good, one is evil, which one are you gonna feed? Ooh, I'm special. Sorry, I have something against that story, but that's a tale for another time. So yeah, he is trying to become a better person, but you trip up. You take 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And that 1 step back is a good example of showing people, hey, it's okay to make mistakes. Sometimes you do the wrong thing. It doesn't matter, just keep moving forward. Well, in Western media, it'd be a little bit more along the lines of, hey, you made that mistake, might as well go along with it, that's the new way of life. Option 2, give me one moment. My throat is killing me. Alright, option 2 is he does not want to stop being a blackmailer, but because of what happened at the battle tower, he decides, I need to be better at being a bad guy. So he dedicates himself to being as much of a good blackmailer as he can. And from there you look what different types of blackmails there are. How can he deal with unexpected situations when he's blackmailing somebody? What happens if he gets caught? What happens if somebody else is blackmailing the same target at the same time he is? Can he try and blackmail the blackmailer in some weird way? Something fun like that. And he can better himself in the art of blackmail. But it still follows the concept of being better. I agree about the simplicity in games. What makes games interesting is limitations and the rules, yes. And what is meaningful is exploring the possibilities of those rules, actions, and limitations. Exactly, Vortex Bite. You took the words right out of my mouth. And going pretty deep in exploring that. If everything is available, nothing is. It's the ability to figure out, with what you have, how you can get by, that really makes things fun and interesting. It's one of the reasons why original Naruto worked so well. You know, how are Naruto and Sasuke going to deal with Zabuza who's got Kakashi trapped? They can't overpower him. What options do they have to beat him? As opposed to, okay, who's gonna take this fight because we're so much stronger than Zabuza? If that was the case. I make games, so I guess I kind of learned this along the way. What type of games do you make, by the way? Now I'm curious. An example of set limitations could be a card game, which I find card games a little bit weird because they have the perfect way of balancing out things and not getting into power creep, but they always get into power creep. How much mana does something cost? And with that mana, what can you do with it? You know, Magic the Gathering, you summon a 1 mana, 1/1 creature. Okay, that's pretty good. Pretty basic, but you know, it's something. somebody else summons a 1-mana 1/1 with haste, it can attack first. But is there any drawbacks to it? Maybe it needs a specific color while the other one doesn't. Various ways you can balance that out and set limitations of what you can do. I have been having trouble with creating character progression with character ensemble stories. How do you make a better and important B and C list character important and intriguing? These small games, I'm actually still pretty new, but recently I made a 2D platformer and 2D top-down shooter, more of a hobby. Yeah, that's alright, hobbies can become a lot bigger things. My tea shop, drinking tea was a hobby, and now it's my livelihood. Stanley, can you reword that a little bit? Yeah, reword it a little bit better so I can better understand what you mean. I want to answer this because I think I know what you mean, but I don't want to start rambling without fully knowing what you mean. I've been having trouble with creating character progression with character ensemble stories. Give you some time to actually answer. Well, how many characters in the ensemble stories, I suppose I should ask. Because the more characters, the more complicated it can get. Well, I pretty much think I understand. You have a story with a bunch of characters. Some characters are obviously less important than other ones. How can you make them more important and intriguing? This throat. There's a couple little tricks I personally know that seem really small, but make a huge difference. C.S. Lewis said something similar in one of his books. The narratives we tell ourselves more important than any single action we can take because narrative will influence everything we do. Yes. The narrative of the werewolves kept me from going into the woods when I was a little kid. Alright, so a couple little tricks of making B and C characters more interesting. Give them little nuances of characters. I'll give food is a surprisingly excellent example that is not used enough. Man, I'm dying. Madoka Magica. There was one character who I do not remember what she did or what her part of the story even was. But what I do remember is she loved apples. So for me, she is the apple-eating character because that little thing gave her a bit more personality, even though it seems like there's nothing really to it. Naruto liking ramen was a pretty big part of his character. Even though in terms of the overall story it means nothing, you still remember that he likes ramen. So giving them a specific food, and maybe in the midst of conversation having it play a role in what's going on, could matter. Let's see what other little tricks can I think off the top of my head, because I mean, in the stories I have a lot of secondary characters, so I am in a similar boat. But I shouldn't use my own stuff, I should use things other people might be aware of and jump from that. There's also the element of self-awareness. In My Hero Academia, there is the character that has the tail and uses martial arts. He is completely self-aware of how much of a normie he is. That's like, that's half of his character, of everybody acknowledging that he is a normie. So adding in some self-awareness with that also helps. If man lived 70 years and states live 200 plus, then the state is more important. But if man is eternal, then it is the state that is fleeting. Stories have wider effects than many believe. Yes. Stories shape every little thing we do. For good or worse. So here is a personal example of stories affecting other people. One moment again. Ooh, this coughing is ridiculous. I keep muting the mic so I can cough. When I was in high school, I was fed the same exact story as everybody else about college, and just how important college is. If you don't go to college, you will be a loser, you will make no money, you will be on the streets, injecting heroin and sucking dick for cocaine and all of this awful stuff. You must go to college. You must. There is no option B. If you don't go to college, your life is over. Now me, by the time I was 15, yeah, around 15? Yeah, 15 going on 16 is when, actually wait, no. 14 going on 15 is when, what's a good way of putting it? My conception of reality began to shatter. It's not as deep as that. It sounds way too, intense. Granted, it was intense, but I'm just getting the overall idea. And I began to question a lot. One of those being the narrative of college. Because I began noticing there was one person in particular in some of my classes. This person, I'll give this story to give you an idea of the intelligence of this person. He sincerely asked me if I wanted to get together with him, put on some helmets, and fight with baseball bats. For shits and giggles, not to prove any point because of anger. A friendly round of hit each other with baseball bats. That motherfucker went on to college. And I'm supposed to believe that that guy is going to become successful and do good things because why, he went to college? No, something doesn't sit right here. What can college do that I cannot do on the internet? I graduated high school in 2007, and by this point the internet has taken off plenty, and I saw just how much was possible with the internet and books. And I asked, what can college do that I can't learn on my own? And it quickly became about getting the piece of paper. Before I continue with this story, on character ensemble, for example, Naruto characters like Akane Chiyo plus the rest. Who is Akane Chiyo? I'm gonna look it up. 1 second, looking it up. Akane. Hey. Chiyo. Okay. That's not a Naruto character. Naruto. Bam. Up the old woman, okay. Akane Chiyo plus the rest. How would the writer have made them more interesting even though they're not part of the main characters? One thing they could have done, I'm not sure how Naruto itself would have done it, but here's an example with using Naruto again. Tsunade, when she came around, she was mentioned by Tenten much earlier in the series. I want to be like the legendary ninja Tsunade-sama. That was her goal. So boom, someone made a mention of Tsunade, and you met her like 50, not even. That would have been around episode 48. Like 30 episodes later, you meet her. So put something into the world in which her relevance matters. They just kind of introduced her and let her die. They gave her a background, sure. What they also could have done is kind of done the reverse of what Tsunade-sama did, where have certain things happen in the show, and then when you're introduced to this character, have some kind of a flashback happen, and then you realize it's because of her policies or actions or something that that thing actually happened. Making something up with Naruto. Let's say when Shino and Kabuto were fighting, Shino got poisoned, but let's say that the poison was something severe, and it required a lot of work to be able to get it clean because the poison was something that was banned. There was a ninja treaty that was signed that said you cannot use this level of deadly poison, so it took a while to be able to counteract it. And maybe it had some after effects, and eventually Shino got over it after the Sand Village helped after they signed the treaty. And then when she was introduced, you find out that because of what Sasori did, her grandson, she signed the declaration that says this poison cannot be used by anyone ever again because it's too deadly. So something like that would have tied her in with things that happened in the past, even though you never saw her, immediately giving her a sense of importance in the story. Then you realize this person is so influential that, you know, she made multiple ninja villages sign this treaty on poison. And people were following it. Up until the invasion. So something like that, just coming up with an example off the top of my head. I'm usually a lot better when I write things down and think them out more thoroughly. If you want more, if you want me to go more in depth, just ask. I'm gonna go back to the college story. So yeah, so I noticed that. I noticed they kept talking about the pieces of paper, but the problem is, I remember that from elementary school all the way up until high school, I kept getting told these stories about what would be. See what I did there? Stories. These stories about what's gonna happen in the future when I go to junior high school, and when I go to high school, and when I go to college, and blah blah blah. I remember in elementary school when they were teaching us cursive, and they told us, well, when you get into junior high school, you're only going to be writing in cursive, so you need to learn it. That's what they told us. Guess what? Wasn't true. In junior high, they said that they told several lies. One that I remembered is the grades in junior high were going to follow me into high school and college. Who the fuck looks at junior high grades? Seriously, who does that? Nobody does that. Who cares what grades you had in junior high when you were 12? So that's one of the lies they told. That in high school of how college was going to make me so much smaller. One of the things I noticed, and I noticed this a lot, was how many people were planning what college they were going to go to based on how much of a party school it is. So these motherfuckers are out here going to spend like $30,000 a year to find the best place where they can get shit-faced wasted and have sex with who knows how many people, who knows how many pregnancies are going to come out of it. You know what, I'm not going to go into detail of what I was going to say because it gets a little bit too personal with somebody else's life. I don't feel like doing that. So I did not go to college. In fact, here's a Here's something I look forward to one day saying at like a high school graduation that calls me over and has no idea who I am. I regret not dropping out of high school. You heard me. This wasn't my accent. I regret not dropping out of high school. I wish I dropped out. Not even a GED. Just get me the hell out of there. I would not have been able to, because before 18, you need the parents to sign something that says, hey, I am okay with this because reasons. I did not turn 18 until March. So I had March, April, May, June. So basically around 3 to 4 months of school left until I graduated. I still regret not dropping out. Because even those was high school debt, yes, it was atrocious. To put it mildly. Because even those couple of extra months would have gotten me so much more out of life and given me so much more of a increase of a reason to live. No, that's erase that. That's a little bit too melodramatic. It would have gotten my life in a much better direction. I'm in high school now. I also wish to one day say this. Especially right now, I cannot stress how important it is to not go to college. College will not make you smarter. It will just waste thousands of your dollars for nothing. Because let's say if you want to be a video game designer, they're not going to worry so much about what college you went to, what grades you had. They're going to look at the work that you did. And that is most important. For me, it was kind of different. I wanted to be a martial artist, as I said. My very first fight in the cage is when I was 18 years old. I was 18 years old in what? March, April, May, June. Yeah, 18 years, 3 months old. Fought in the heavyweight division. I was only, I think, like 220 at that time, and my opponent was like 280. Big guy. And as a bonus, I had 2 pulled groin muscles. So I cannot lift my legs side to side. Because at the time, I was working at medieval times. I was going to be a knight. And the horse riding really messed me up. I kind of want to go to trade school. Trade school is just fine. Doing something with your hands, that is perfectly acceptable. Maybe even encouraged by me, actually. Yeah, there is no problem going to trade school and learning a craft. Everyone's going to need plumbers, electricians. There's never going to be a point in which those guys are not needed. And they get paid much better than those people make it out to be. You know what? That's the other fucking thing that school did that really pisses me off now that I think about it. They kept playing the same goddamn line of, you don't want to be a plumber, you don't want to be a garbage man, electrician. Those are just petty lowbrow jobs. Fuck you, high school. There is nothing wrong with those type of jobs at all. And you assholes try to use that as some sort of, you want to be this type of lower tier of society. You want to be with us intellectuals. Piece of shit. Fuck you, whoever I'm speaking to. Whatever generic teacher I'm thinking of right now. Yeah, it's all about the ability in that sense, since making games is kind of like a black art of a thing. Black art? What do you mean by that? Curious about that term. Black art. Yeah, how can I put it? Any job in which you are doing something I approve of. Any job that just has you thinking, go to hell. Do not be quote unquote intellectual. Because intellectualism without action, it's nothing more than theories, ideas. Useless. If you don't put your ideas to the test, it doesn't matter. You can say whatever type of garbage you want, but unless you're actually doing something, doesn't matter. Like with me, before the business, I read so many books on economics and studied economics and had all of these different types of thoughts and notions about economics before I started a business. And after I started a business, I was able to put a lot of that into practice. I mean, it turned out good. It turned out that most of the theories I had were true. Not all of them. Some of them were actually catastrophic failures, but most of them turned out good. A skill or ability that seems mysterious or magical, often used humorously. She's trying to master the black art of setting up. Ah, I gotcha. At some point, I'll be designing my own video games as well, but need more money for that, which is where support comes in. Super chats, tier of the month club, whatever you can think of, if you can. I'm not going to pressure you because in my current state, I can't give any super chats to anybody else unless there's some kind of a business reason for it. Trust me, I understand the poor man's life. Anyway, what about scholars or teachers? Screw them as well. Let me slightly rephrase that, I guess. Teachers as the concept is not a problem. Teachers in terms of nowadays, it's a big problem. Spit on teachers as you see them walking down the street, if it was up to me. Fuck. This is not a political channel. I don't want to make it a political channel, so you know what? I am going to just drop the teacher thing altogether because it's gonna... There's places I do not want this channel to go, and that is in the realm of politics. In terms of the culture war, well, guess what? I don't mention it much in my videos, but I am fighting the good fight, just in a much different way. Manipulate you without lying to you, hint hint. How do you avoid world building flaws like plot contrivances, and how do you fix character progression and mystery? Essentially, how do you improve Bleach? Number one with Bleach, after the Rukia arc, the one that came afterwards with the Orohime, scrap 90% of it. You can keep the Aron card if you wish, but everything else, just do away with it. Because it was the same plot as the previous arc. Politics is usually filled with evil people, yes. And because I'm not really into politics, too many people when they talk about political things, they're playing this game where they don't want their words to be connected to something they like. And so let's say if somebody is a specific political affiliation, let's say libertarian, they don't want to say something really bad and then have everybody point and say, look, this is what libertarians believe, hue. And since I don't have to worry about that, I am more readily able to say, leave me alone or I will unironically shoot you. There's my political stance. Leave me alone, or so help me God, I will force you to leave me alone. There's my politics in a nutshell. Hooray. Okay, moving on from that before this stream gets banned. Oh, God. Bleach. Why do you have to mention Bleach? That was one of those big shows I watched back in the day that kind of just died on me. Politics is not solving problems. That is correct. Or it's not focused on solving problems. And that's one of the things I seek to do. Solve a lot of problems. Ooh, who heard about the big lawsuit that's happening with the Blizzard and Activision? That's something I want to talk about, and maybe I'll talk about it in a little bit. But I want to answer Stanley's thing about how do you avoid world-building flaws like plot contrivances. Number one, don't be afraid to start again. The story I mentioned before, Jingi, of the martial arts world and whatnot, I have written out scripts going on like 300 pages at some point, I think. And on multiple occasions, they end up getting deleted. Usually because my father, who wants to be a guy who knows everything about the computers, does something stupid and ends up deleting fucking everything. And that's happened multiple times, so I've had to restart the plots many times over. So let's say you've written 500 pages and you realize on page 200 something happens that makes the rest of the story not make sense. See if you can fix it, and if not, it is okay, especially if you're young, to just delete pages 201 to 500 and just start again. Bleach. Liking a specific food is a good start, but don't limit yourself to food. Correct. I was just using just one example with that. Being interested makes you interesting. Yes. Great book. Dodger by Pachet. Main character is a perfect example of this. Just the characters overall having an interest in something. That's one of the reasons why My Hero Academia, when they did the chapter/episode, where you go into each character's rooms and see what the room looks like. Mwah. Beautiful. Beautiful way to give every single character more depth by not really doing much of anything. Something like that. Who is contacting me? Better be important. Well, actually, I'm expecting people. 1 second. Let me make sure this is not that. Vertex Bite, thank you for following me on the Twitters. Okay. Alright, fantastic. I run an Airbnb out of my apartment, and somebody was supposed to come between 8 and 10 a.m., and guess who? They're not here, so yay for that. One moment. How do you go about making a new video? I'll give you a hint. The process is still awful for me. I am too much of a big picture guy, and I lose sight of the trees for the forest. That happens way too often with me. And so, my big issue is how do I begin? And what I usually do is I don't really begin at the beginning. I just kind of begin whatever the hell I want. And from there, it gives me an idea of the flow that the video or script is going to have. And from there, I can say, okay, now I know kind of what it's going to go in the middle. Let me try again with the beginning. And when it comes to the actual video editing in Premiere Pro, the first 15 minutes, it just spent looking at the blank canvas going, what video am I going to use in the beginning? How am I going to start this off? Oh my god. But then after the point, I get into a flow, and it just goes from there. Getting into that flow is the most important thing, I think. Because the flow is a stone's throw away from consistency. Just consistently writing something down because you're just in the moment, going with the flow. Have I said flow enough times? Flow. And There's a saying in Go, in the game I was talking about before, that I apply to everything else. In the game of Go, you don't become good at it. You just become less bad at it over time. At no point that you're ever good at the game. That's how I view a lot of the video stuff. And the script writing stuff. I'm never good at it, I'm just less bad than I was before. I guess the shape of the problem doesn't start anywhere. I love this quote. Oh, the question is, what do I want to do next after this? Do I want to get back to working on the Attack on Titan video? Because I am still trying to figure out exactly what I am doing with this. It's going to be a bit of a different video, especially in terms of how I edit it. Because usually the process is I write out the scripts, I begin editing the video, and if something doesn't feel right, I go back and edit little parts of the script. Here, I'm writing out... How can I put it? There's a few key moments in Attack on Titan, which is going to have a main focus. The parts that are not a key moment, I'm typing out the script where it's going to be probably verbatim. And then when I get to those main points, I just write out main point X here. And I don't type out what I'm going to say. I choose audio, usually from the show. I put it together and I start making almost like a mini music video in it. And then after that is done, I look at the pauses and the climax and the, God, I don't know music terms. The tempo, the bridge. And I'm trying to base my words off of that while still saying what I actually want to say. And it seems like I can get my hands on the software that lets me take out the music from the Japanese audio. So I can actually work on that finally. But yeah, it's a weird, complex thing I am doing. So do I want to go back to working on that? Because I want to be able to finish it so the video comes out a day or two after the final episode airs in 2022. Or do I want to make another video like, not like this specifically, because if you notice, this video doesn't have many views, and I knew that from the start. I knew this video was not going to do good. But that's okay because it held a message I wanted to get out there for the people who are willing to listen. And when I do other videos in the future that might get more views, I am going to be pointing back to this video saying this is the foundation. Here is the video on My Hero Academia, I don't know. Wait. And then people can go back and see what I'm all about. Yeah, you can do a bunch of work in like 1 or 3 hours when you're in the flow state. Correct. And how you set up that flow state matters a lot as well. For me, I got this whole system with lighting up incense, wearing specific clothing, setting up my workstation. When you figure that stuff out, it's easier to get into the flow state. One second, gotta do some clickety clicks, cause. Okay, back to what I should be doing, which is this. Wait. So yeah, should I work on the Attack on Titan video, or should I make another video like My Hero Academia, because that sells like hotcakes. Every My Hero Academia video I do has a lot of views. I mean, if you look at my top 5 videos, 3 of them are My Hero Academia related. Let me see, 1 second. Let me pull this up. You come here. YouTube Studio. Content. Clickety click. Sort by views. Yeah, so, no, just one. Okay. So in the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 videos, 3 of the 6, no, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 6 are My Hero Academia related. Only 2 that are not is my Naruto video, which is 1,100,000 views, nice, and my Gurren Lagann video, which I've spent a ridiculous amount of time promoting it. Versus The Problem with Deku, which is my second highest video at 10,791 views. I made that video on a whim of a comment. Somebody asked me to make this video. So I'm like, alright, I mean, it kind of fits with something I've been thinking anyway, so I might as well make it. So it goes Deku, Gurren Lagann, the Mineta video, Bakugo video, Deku Super Saiyan 3. And then the Symbol of Peace was a mistake. It's much slower down than I expected. But in general, My Hero Academia videos do really well. But I don't want to make this a My Hero Academia channel. I have, what is 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 My Hero videos? It's a bit much. Back to the chat. Intellectual Society by Thomas Sowell, who I love his books. Everyone should read it. Makes intellectual into the worst insult. Yes, by exposing everything they've done over the centuries and why. Absolutely correct. If all you do is think and not do, why should I care about your thoughts? It's a problem. Again, I come from a traditional martial arts background. It's a problem many traditional dojos have nowadays, where they have ideas of what they would do in a fight and how they would handle a confrontation. But then they get punched in the face and all of a sudden, oops, no I don't. How can you keep your audience engaged for longer periods of time of longer serialized stories like One Piece? When I get asked questions like this, I have like a million thoughts and I have to narrow it down. I gotta use this specific example to help nail it down. Unfortunately, One Piece, I've only watched the first 14-ish episodes because the art style, I can't. I'm sorry, I just can't. It's too much of a turnoff. I wish it wasn't so. I would love to read the story of One Piece, but I can't look at it. Alright, let me think to make sure that I word all of this correctly. So ultimately, people don't necessarily like to see things stay in one place. They like motion. Whether for better or worse, they want things to always be moving. And they don't necessarily want it to keep moving to the same spots. So they don't want to see things going around in circles. So if you can keep things moving in a certain specific way that maybe touches back on things that have happened but still go forward, people should still be interested. Build upon what was already there. Have you read History's Strongest Disciple Kenichi? That is a prime example, actually. If you have not, I'll find a way to explain it for somebody who has not read it. If you have not read it, so basic premise, little nerdy kid always getting bullied, is sick of it, so makes it a decision. I'm no longer gonna be weak. he meets a lovely young lady who lives in a dojo with 6 crazy martial arts masters who take Kenichi under his wing. The show from beginning to end is Kenichi getting stronger and fighting stronger enemies. That's it. That's the plot. But it's still consistently entertaining and keeps people's attention because of how they go about it. One moment. Alright, so in the beginning, all he wants to do is survive a fight with the current bully he is dealing with, who is just some no-named black belt who is always picking on him. He finds a way to survive, but that catches the attention of the captain of the karate club. He fights him, but the captain of the karate club is working for the leader of a gang. So now Kenichi needs to deal with her and all the other little gang members around. She ends up being part of a larger teenage gang organization called Yomi. No, let me take that back. Called Ragnarok. The leader of this gang of misfits is part of a group called Yomi, which is made up of disciples of the strongest martial artist who follow the path of killing, while Kenichi follows the path of non-killing. And so throughout the entire plot, they always change something about the feel of what is going on. So at first Kenichi is just trying to deal with the bullies, like one bully at a time type of deal. Now he's got to deal with this gang of misfits going after him, while he's still getting stronger, learning new techniques. Again, he's got 5 different martial arts masters, all teaching him something different. So you see his growth going from, I can barely throw a punch, to I have combined the styles to make my own punch. When he has to deal with the leader of Ragnarok, it was actually a childhood friend of his. And because of something that happened in their youth, it all leads up to this giant confrontation. And so now you have Kenichi's past coming back. Because neither of them were martial artists, and because of something that happened between them when they were kids, it's all led up to this major confrontation. And because of this confrontation, Yomi, which is the group of disciples, have taken an interest in Kenichi. Now here's where it gets really interesting in my opinion. 1 second. So it goes from basic bullying to schoolyard fights to gang fights to a fight with friends, like serious fights that deal with the past. And now, the new set of enemies, like all the other fights were, pretty basic bitch and hilarious. But now, these people, they want to kill him. They want the honor of killing Kenichi. So the stakes have gone up a little bit. So now Kenichi has to deal with surviving. Not just dealing with the bullies, but not dying. And there was a really big shit gets real moment when he's fighting one of them and he ends up getting stabbed in the shoulder, which is pretty big and intense. Who are these people contacting me? Go away, go away, go away. Right. So yeah, it's still the same concept of he's fighting other people. Like, that single basic premise has not changed. He is fighting other people. But the reasons for his fighting keep changing. And that keeps moving the story and evolving him. So at some point he's got to ask himself the question. He is now fighting somebody who is intending to kill him. Is he going to kill him back to keep himself alive? The guy who just stabbed him in the shoulder. Give me one moment. I'm getting a phone call. One moment. Be right back. Alright, my friends. Rustarov, you came at just the wrong time. So my Airbnb guy just came in and he's downstairs. He gave me no notification he was even on his way. So I need to go grab him and take care of all that. And sorry, this needs to end basically now. I'll try and do this again in the future, sooner rather than later. I apologize for this, and this is kind of frustrating for me.